have to push continue. Okay. I think we're ready to roll, right, Dr. Gerken?
Yes.
Got all the logistical things out of the way?
That's right.
Again, welcome to everybody. And this is the test anxiety in a remote setting. And we are going to get started. Okay. Everybody. Oh. Last time it wouldn't play at all. Now it just wants to keep playing. Okay. So for some reason. Okay. All right. Like I said, we have additional counseling workshops. So we have 3 more hosted by my colleagues here at Glendale. So we have the 3 that are on the screen right now. And you can find those on the counseling website if you want to go back and get the Zoom link. And also Dr. Gerken is going to put this PowerPoint in the chat at the end, so you'll have the link as well. So 3 more coming up: building optimism, healthcare and COVID tracing, and then saving the best for last, we have Dr. Gerken, choosing a career, how to get started.
Oh, come on now, you're saving the worst for last.
Okay. Okay, now. Okay, so we are talking about test anxiety today. And a lot of you have probably experienced this. So when you look at this little guy, he's having all kinds of reactions. So most students experience some level of anxiety during an exam. That's a normal thing. You want to have that because if you have it before and during, that's what motivates you to study, to go to the test, to concentrate, to do all the things. It's when it reaches that threshold, and everyone has a different threshold. When it goes above that and starts causing problems with your performance, that's when it's a concern. So what we're going to talk about today is, do you have test anxiety? How is it manifesting itself? What can you do to alleviate it? And then we're also going to talk about some other test taking procedures and techniques that will help you with any type of test, remote and in person. All right, so the first thing I'd like you to do when you're looking at this picture, in the chat, and Dr. Gerken's going to be looking at all your wonderful answers. In the chat, go ahead and list what type of responses you have to test taking. Do you sweat? Do you have trouble concentrating? The rapid breathing? Does your stomach get upset? Are you trembling? Those are all things that can happen. So in the chat, please list what happens to you when you're experiencing test anxiety. And if there's something that happens to you and it's not on there, please add it. So it could be one of these, or it could be something completely different. So looks like we have a few in the chat that have expressed their okay. What are you seeing, Dr. Gerken? Did I lose him? Hello?
I'm sorry, I had myself muted.
Okay.
I'm seeing several that said tummy ache or stomach ache, hard to think or hard to think clearly, increased heart rate, trouble concentrating, negative thinking, loss of breath.
Yes, those are all very common. We're going to talk about ways to first recognize that it's happening, and then why is it happening, and some techniques for you to go forward with your test taking. Okay, thank you for sharing your thoughts. So with test taking, and test anxiety is going to be worked into this throughout each of the stages. There's three different stages of test taking. There's the before the test. What do you do before? And that's the prep. What do you do during the test? And then what do you do after? So we're going to break it down into those three sections and go through some techniques that you can do. So before the test, so you want to review your personal situation and skills. All of you have different skills. You're all in different situations when you are at your home. And most of you will be taking your test this semester and possibly in the summer in a remote setting. So that's why it's kind of focusing on that. But these techniques will help for when we go back in person as well. So before the test, you want to develop good study habits. So where are you studying? Is it working for you? Do you have the TV on? Do you have radio on? Do you have music, your earphones? And if so, is that working or are you distracted? Are you constantly checking your phone for social media updates? Do you have your dog running through and needing your attention or another type of pet? That's what you want to look at. Do you have siblings, children? Are you able to study and retain the information, get it into your long-term memory so that you can be able to use it in real life and also on the exam? So where are you studying? You don't want to pull what we call an all-nighter. You want to break it into chunks. So if you know that you have a test in a week, you can break it up. Okay, night one, I'm going to look at the vocabulary. Night two, I'm going to do an outline. Night three, and you're breaking it up so it's not so overwhelming and that you're able to recall it. Because that's the biggest part of test anxiety. It's that you're not able to recall it. You don't feel prepared. So if you're more prepared, just like anything, if you're an athlete or a debater, the more you prepare for whatever it is you're doing, the better it's going to go for you. Okay, so what notes do you have? How are you going to review? Managing your time, that kind of goes back to putting it into chunks again. And how are you going to deal with procrastination? And that's a big concern right now because you have all of these things happening that are distracting you. And they're more fun. It's more fun to watch Netflix or do other things instead of your homework and study for that exam. So that's a really big thing for everyone, not just students. We all are dealing with procrastination and the distractions and the concern and all of the other things that you're feeling. Organize your material to be studied and learned. So you want to make sure you have all your notes. How are you going to study it? And you're going to look at your learning style and your personality to determine what's the best way for you to study so that you learn it. You have had lots of different classes probably at this point. You have a good idea of how you study. So use that insight and self-reflection to say, yeah, I need to be in a room by myself. I have to have all my notes ready. I have to have the chapters outlined, and I know that will be the best way for me to be successful on the test. So really a lot of self-reflection on this. So some of these techniques are going to work for you and some of them are not. So I'm going to ask you to look them over and then determine which one you would think would work for you. Outside pressures, that's why the song was playing when you came in. It's called Under Pressure. You have all of these pressures that you're putting on yourself and other people are putting on you. What are the consequences of the grade? So you are catastrophizing. If I don't do well on the test, I'm not going to pass the class, and then I'm not going to be able to go on and get my 4-year degree and go on to law school. All of these things are running through your head. Like, what's the script? And that's going to cause your anxiety to go up. So again, having the techniques to reduce that self-talk and make it a positive. So you want to turn the negative to the positive. The peer pressure, competing against other people, those are all the pressures that you put on yourself. And then in the pandemic, you probably have additional pressures of having to be isolated or expose yourself if you have to go into work, and wondering what's the next step. You want to also review your past performance on the test to improve and learn from the experience. So if you're able, if your instructors allow you to take the test home or to have it so that you can review it, that's a good way to know. A lot of your classes are foundation. You have to have a strong foundation in order to build on top of it. So if there's something that you're not understanding, and this really pertains to all classes. So you want to make sure, in math that you have the basics down so that you can use those skills in the next chapter. So at this point, this may be when you need to talk to the instructor or seek tutoring. And there's all kinds of tutoring available. So speaking of that, that's our next thing. In the chat, what tutoring are you aware of that's available to you as a Glendale Community College student? What are some things that you've heard about, either through your instructors or by social media or looking on the website? Or so in the chat, please put what are you aware of, especially in the remote setting. Everyone had to change how they do things. So tutoring looks a little different now. So what's available? What are we, anything in there, Dr. Gerken?
The first response I see is I didn't know there was tutoring.
Oh, well, great. I'm glad you're here.
Another response is that Brain Fuse is available 24/7.
Yes. And if you have a different work schedule and maybe you work during the day and then you're doing your homework at night, Brain Fuse is wonderful because you can go in when you're having problems, because you're not going to be able to get a hold of your instructor or probably a classmate in the middle of the night if that's when you're doing your homework. Hopefully you're not doing it right before the test and pulling an all-nighter, but they are available. And I believe they extended it to, do you get 5 hours a semester or is it 10?
It depends on the type of tutoring. Here's another response. There's free foreign language and writing tutoring based on the Learning Center. Your instructor should have a contact number for tutors and individual subjects.
And on our website, and I'm going to attempt to take you to the website, so hopefully you can see it. If you disappear, come back. I don't want to lose you. It's a little bit slower because I'm sharing the screen, but here is, so you can go to the Glendale website, you can put tutoring in the search and look at all these wonderful places that you can go to get tutoring. So welcome to tutoring. And I heard language, so arts and humanity, biology, chemistry, all those different areas. So you look, writing will help with papers, any type of writing assignment that you have. Here's the Brain Fuse. Okay. Is everyone still there? Can everyone hear me?
I'm there.
You can hear me.
I can see it, I can hear you, and
Okay.
I think they can too.
All right.
They can type in the chat if they want to let you know.
Okay. So just know that this is there for you. And if you seek out tutoring, it doesn't mean that you're not smart and you're not going to be successful. It means that you're smart enough to know that you need some assistance and that you're going to get through this by the help of others, that interdependence of knowing, having the insight that, yes, I need some additional help. So all of this is available to you. Seek that out. Okay. Oh, we're back. Good, good. Okay. So the next thing I want to hear from you, so I know kind of what to focus on, is what type of issues have you had so far? So we have been in this type of environment for a whole year now. So you've probably had some type of issue. So in the chat again, could you please tell us what type of issues have you had? Did your computer freeze up? Could you not get into the test? Did you run out of time? Those are all the things that I'm hearing from students that maybe they had to use a new software that they weren't aware of, or they didn't know how to get it onto their computer, or it wouldn't load, or and it's just nerve-wracking if there's like a camera on you and like, oh, all these people are going to think I'm cheating if I look away. So those are all the things. So what issues have you had?
Here's some of the responses. Finding a quiet place in a house full of people.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that.
Tech issues, internet connection, running out of time. Those are the other responses I see.
Okay, so definitely we're going to talk about how do you budget your time. But when we're talking about the before, what are some things you can do to prepare for the test itself? So knowing what type of software do you have to have? Sometimes they are requesting your instructors a certain software. Maybe you have to physically go into the testing center and everything that's involved in that. Make sure you have your mask and any type of reservations you have about going to campus. And again, where are you going to take this test? Do you have a strong internet connection? And there's things that can happen that are out of your control. My power has been going out almost like every other week. And it's because of all of the people who are trying to work from home. SRP just can't really keep up. So if I was in the middle of a test or a workshop like I am now and my power went out, that would cause a lot of anxiety for me. So if I can prep what type of issues are going to maybe come up, then I'll be more relaxed. Okay, so remote testing considerations and a lot of the things that you put in the chat, we're going to talk about that. So you want to prepare, again, a lot of you, the reason why I wanted to do this presentation at this time, you're either about ready to take midterms or you're going to take midterms after spring break. So this is going to help you. You've probably had an exam already. So you know what type of software is available, how much time you're going to get, what do the questions look like, where are you going to do this? Do you need to go somewhere that has a better internet connection? Okay, so you want to prepare, read and understand the test guidelines. If you know ahead of time, that's going to be even better for you. Be sure you can answer these questions. So will the test take place at a specific date and time? Sometimes when you're ready, you can take it and you'll have 90 minutes. Other times you are all taking it at the same time and you have to all be online taking it. So make sure you know that. Can you take the exam at any point, like I said, or do you have a particular window of time? How much time is allotted for you to complete the tests? One of you mentioned that running out of time. So again, budgeting your time. If you know, okay, I have 90 minutes and there's 25 questions and 3 of them are essay, then you want to allow more time for the essay questions. And then how much do you have for each of the multiple choice? Maybe you have 2 minutes, you're breaking it down, you're looking at the clock so that you get to all of it.
I got a couple of other comments about time.
Okay.
A student said I get obsessed with how much time I have left. And then one of my teachers tells us how much time to allow for each part of the test so we don't freak out.
Oh, that's nice. Yes. And again, they will do that, the instructor. That's wonderful that they're doing it. But again, know yourself as well. Maybe you need a little bit more time and you can budget something from another piece. They're giving you a guideline, but again, knowing yourself. Um, okay, so you have how long, much time? Are there any other important need to know factors? So if you have a bandwidth issue, so before this happened, I didn't even know what bandwidth was, but if there's other people working from home or taking classes, so if you have children who are doing live online and they are doing it at the same time as you're trying to take the test, it could be that you're going to get a thing that comes up that says your bandwidth is weak, or even in the neighborhood, if it's, if you have Cox or CenturyLink, they may be overwhelmed. So if you know that, you want to make sure that that doesn't happen in the middle of the exam, because it may cut you off, and or it could be choppy. You could have that essay question almost done and then the whole computer blinks off because of the bandwidth. So this is something that you can look into with your company. Sometimes it does cost more, so be aware of that. How much data do you have? Are you going above that because of all the online? And what applications do you need? Sometimes you have to pay for the application, so you want to make sure you have the funding for that ahead of time, and you're not doing it right before going, oh no, I have to come up with the money to pay for this application and the test starts in 10 minutes. So make sure you have all of those things in place so that you can remain calmer. Again, check your computer. A lot of students will come and say, I had to use a Chromebook that they gave me. I had to go pick it up. I'm not used to Chromebooks. So if you can practice with the type of computer you're going to be using, and if someone told me I had to use a Mac, I would, I know there's a lot of Mac people out there, but I'm not, I'm a, Android, I'm a PC type of person. So that would throw me off. So would that happen to you too? So avoid last minute problems. The more prepared you are with the technology, the easier it's going to be for you. So if you're using your own computer or in a lab, make sure you have the correct hardware and you know how to use it. And that should all be in your syllabus, or when the instructor announces the test, what you're going to need to be successful. Okay. Any other questions popping up about that or comments? No?
Don't see any at this point, but I'll let you know if some pop up.
Okay. And then again, you want to be sure, can you have a calculator? Can you have notes? Or do you have to have everything completely? Sometimes you have to show your surroundings prior to the test so they can see it and you're on camera. And just being on camera during a test can cause anxiety. Okay. And then several of you mentioned the distractions. When you're taking the test, is it a possibility that siblings could come running into the room, or children, or possibly furry animals? I have been dealing a lot with this. There's my furry little TA, as I call him. This is Bentley, and he likes to bark when I am presenting and when I'm in meetings. And since I knew that, I made arrangements for Bentley to not be here. So if you can safely do that and not put anyone in harm, if they can go to grandma's, or if they can go to a neighbor so that you don't have that distraction, that would be a good idea, so that you don't have to worry about that. And he could have maybe been sleeping through the whole thing, but the anxiety of thinking he's going to bark causes anxiety. So I made the arrangements so that I would be less anxious. So you can do the same thing. So there he is. This is a workshop from one of my wonderful esteemed colleagues, Mia Hernandez, and he is checking that out. So again, what are your distractions? Your phone, if it starts ringing during the test, you want to make sure you have it on silent, or maybe you can't even have it around because that could be a mechanism that you could use as an aid, and your instructors don't want that. So what are your distractions and what can you do to get rid of them prior to your testing? Okay, so in general, there's some techniques that you can do to prepare to reduce anxiety, regardless of what the topic is, how you're taking it. The first thing to do is you want to strive to be relaxed. So having, again, I've mentioned this several times, that self-awareness of knowing this is what's causing the stress. What can I do to reduce it so I can get through and concentrate during it? Because if you're above that threshold, you're going to have trouble recalling the information. So a lot of times, if you are talking to someone right before the test and they haven't prepared, that can cause anxiety. Or it could be that they studied something different and they say, oh, what did you think about, how much time did you spend on this topic? And you start really getting anxious because I didn't study that at all. So you don't want to be around people who are going to throw you off of your game. So if they're negative or they distract your preparation, know that. You know already kind of who in your life is going to possibly do that. So try to avoid the people or person. Okay, a program of exercise. So you hear this a lot with your health. It does help sharpen the mind as well. So what type of exercise is feasible for you and what will work for you? So walking your dog, walking by yourself, walking with a friend. If you maybe have some home exercise equipment or you do yoga on the internet, there's all kinds of free things that you can do to help sharpen your mind. But again, doing something that isn't going to hurt you. So you don't want to be hurt during the test. It's something that's going to work. So get a good night's sleep the night before the exam. And this is going to reduce your anxiety as well. I know a lot of people like, I don't have enough time. I need to spend the time studying because if I don't have the information, then I won't do well on the test. But if you're so tired and you only have 1 hour or you don't have any sleep, you're going to have trouble focusing. You're going to be sleepy. If you're driving to the test, it's not even safe for you to be driving. So try to get a good night's sleep. And if you prepare by doing it in chunks, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 on each different night, you won't be as stressed and you won't have to do it all the night before. Okay? So don't go to the exam on an empty stomach, or don't take it on an empty stomach. So fresh fruits and vegetables, those are the best, and that's what they recommend to reduce stress. The stressful foods are processed food and junk food. But when you're anxious, those are the foods that you typically crave. So that's going to be a battle with yourself. Now, don't introduce something that you don't typically do. So if you don't typically eat breakfast and then all of a sudden you're having eggs and bacon and the whole bit right before the exam, that could be a problem. Some of you mentioned that you have stomach issues when you're anxious and then you add eggs and bacon to that. You don't want to have additional things that distract you. So if your stomach is upset, you're going to be focused on that and not the test questions. So if you want to introduce it 2 or 3 weeks prior to the exam, because you're like, oh, it's a good idea, I start eating breakfast, then that's fine. But don't introduce something all of a sudden. Okay, so if you can take a snack or water, if you're allowed to have that, but again, check the syllabus, check the rules of the testing environment if you're allowed to have that. Because if you can just take a break, maybe you just, I don't know these questions, the first 5, I have no idea. And maybe my classmate was right and I studied the wrong information and you feel yourself spiraling out of control. Take a minute, take a breath, take a bite of an apple if possible, or grab a granola bar, take a deep breath, and then go back to the information. So this will help with anxiety as well. Again, knowing yourself, knowing what will work. Some people do really well with meditation and yoga. Other people just keep spinning. Like, I need to do all this other stuff. Meditation doesn't work for everybody. Okay, so now we have talked about what to do before the test to reduce anxiety and to help prepare for the remote test taking. Now it's time to enter, what do you do during the test? So the first thing you want to do is read the directions carefully. I cannot emphasize this enough. Do you have to have a certain pencil? Do you have to have a number 2 pencil or black ink or blue ink? Or do you have to have a Scantron? Do you have to have it, like I said, I've said this several times, a certain software? These are all things that you want to take into consideration. Do you have to have your student ID, or do you just, put your name on there? Read your directions. You've probably all, and I have this on the next slide, where you have a test and it says go ahead and start doing everything on the test. And then the final test question is don't do anything 1 through 9. So that's to encourage you to read all the directions before you start the test, especially in the remote setting. There's different things involved. Okay. Again, we've talked a lot about this, budgeting your time. If your instructor doesn't tell you or give you a guideline, I suggest that you do it. So take a minute before you start taking the test. Say, okay, I have 2 minutes per multiple choice, and then I can do 20 minutes per essay, and budget it. Just like you budget your finances, you want to budget your time for the test. Change positions to help you relax. So if you notice that, oh, I'm clenching my teeth, I'm clenching my fist, I'm clenching my toes, I'm doing all of these things, my neck is all tense, just changing a position, getting up for a second and sitting back down will help regulate your mind so that you, again, be successful during the test. Just changing how you're sitting. If you go blank, if possible. Now, sometimes it's hard on the remote setting. So again, knowing if this is something that you're allowed to do or you can do. Sometimes you have to answer the question before you can even go to the next one in some of these softwares. So you want to be sure you know this ahead of time. But if possible, I usually encourage students to go and find a question that you are aware of. And this is usually when I would ask for feedback of, why is this important? So I'll answer my own question. It's important to do that because it can trigger maybe another question that you didn't know, or it builds your confidence. And you can finally okay, I'm going to be fine. I know this. You'll settle down. You'll get your anxiety below the threshold. And then you can go back to 1, 2, and 3 if you didn't know those before. So skipping is a good idea if you can do it and finding something that you can be comfortable with. Essay test, if you go blank on the whole test, pick a question and just start writing. Again, it may trigger the answer in your mind. You have the information in there, but this is when a lot of students start to panic, and then it kind of goes downhill. So if you can stay on track, keep yourself calm, either doing the deep breathing, the self-talk. What are you telling yourself? You're going to tell yourself, I got this. I studied. I know the information. I'm going to do fine. Everything is okay. Again, it will help release that information from your long-term memory. Okay. Again, And this is another kind of pandemic perk, as I call them. Sometimes when you're doing it in the remote setting, you don't know when people are done. And that's not going to trigger that, oh no, I'm slow, there's something wrong with me, it takes me forever to take a test. But when you're in the classroom and someone starts turning stuff in 30 minutes and you're still on question 4, you start to panic. Oh no, I'm not going to have enough time, or they're smarter than I am, or you again, that negative talk starts creeping in. So again, there's no reward for finishing first. As instructors, my colleagues can tell you, it doesn't mean if you finish first that you're going to get the highest score. So do not think that that's what's happening when people start turning in their papers. So try to not let that bother you. Okay, so when I said, oh, the directions quiz, this is what I was talking about. Some of your instructors will do this, or if you've been to another test taking workshop, it says use the back of this paper, draw a heart. So if you just jumped in and started doing all of these things, so you'd be doing it and then you're raising your hand, even though I wouldn't be able to see you raising your hand, and you're drawing a cow. But then number 10 says, do not do steps 1 through 10. So this is to reiterate, read the directions prior to jumping into the test. You want to make sure you're doing everything correctly so you can get as many points as possible. Okay, so now we've discussed before the test, and now we're going to talk about during the test some more. Okay, so use relaxation techniques. Again, is this working for you? What works for you? But anybody can do in your seat, take slow, deep breaths, and remember you are in control. So it may seem kind of silly that you're talking to yourself inside your head, but it does help. Again, that self-affirmation, I got this, I know this information, I'm going to do great. That will slow everything down and stop the spiraling. Okay? Don't think about the fear, pause, think about the next step, and keep on task step by step. So just keep conquering it. Do one question and then the next question, and try not to worry about that essay question that you saw that you're not quite confident about. So just keep one step at a time. Beware of the inner critic. Again, positive reinforcement. Expect some anxiety. If you remember, it's a reminder that you want to do your best. And I talked about this at the very beginning. It provides the energy that you need, but you want to manage it. So you want to turn the stress, cross that off. If you visualize that and you take it to relax. So you're marking off stress and reimagining what it looks like for you to be relaxed. Okay, so several things we talked about that will be helpful for you during the test. What I want you to do is think about what is going to help. So before the test, during the test. So, this last piece is the habit. Is this your go-to? Do you get stressed, and even if there's not a fight or flight thing going on, is it a habit? So this takes practice. These things that we've been talking about, they're not going to happen overnight. Okay, so then what are you going to do after the test? Sometimes you're like, I'm done, yay, I'm gonna go and have a cheeseburger and celebrate. Yes, do that. Celebrate the accomplishment that you made it and you reduced your stress and you're able to get through the information. But once you know, okay, so list what worked. So of the strategies, and I'm going to ask you in just a minute, what of what we talked about in before the test, what strategies will work for you and your learning style? So think about that. And then during the test, what's going to work for you? What are you willing to try? And then after the test, what worked for you? Did the tutoring work? Did breaking it out in chunks work for you? So even the small things are building blocks to success. So what didn't work? What changes do you need to make to be successful next time? So take note of when did your anxiety go up? Or did you not have the right type of software? When you do it a second time, usually it's much better. Okay, so like I said, list what did not work and seek support if needed. Do you need to go to one of those tutoring options that we discussed at the beginning? Do you need to have a peer tutor, someone in the class that could help you? Talk to the instructor. That's always the first person to talk to if you're not understanding the information. They can help you unravel it. So what worked, what didn't? Do you need to seek out some help? Okay. Again, celebrate that you are overcoming these obstacles. You are learning how to take control of the anxiety, and you're going to do that by taking a walk or eating that cheeseburger. How are you going to celebrate this? Okay. One thing that you can do to reach out is go to Glendale's Counseling Center. As most of you are probably aware, we have counselors. I'm one of the counseling faculty. We have several on the workshop now, and we're here to help you. So if you want some more techniques, or you want to talk to someone about your test anxiety one-on-one, we can do a Google Meets, or we can talk on the phone. So to do that, this is how you schedule an appointment with one of the counselors. You can either send an email to this counseling@gccaz.edu or call the front desk, and they will arrange an appointment that works for you. And we're here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it is going to be a virtual setting at this point till the end of the semester. All right. So now what I'd like you to do with the time we have left is process the information. So we went over a lot in a short period of time. So what I'd like you to do, and I alluded to this before, what strategies will work for you and your learning style and your personality? So what we talked about with the before the test, during the test, and after the test, what strategies will work for you? Like I said, not everybody's into yoga, but maybe taking a walk or kickboxing or something like that works for you. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is select one strategy from each category. So the before category, the during category, and the after. So if you were taking notes, you can refer back to that. Or if you something like, oh yeah, I want to try that. What will work for you? So again, post this in the chat. This is going to help you formulate it, and it's also going to help the other individuals who are in the workshop. What is going to work for you maybe will work for them as well. So you're giving each other ideas. So here's some things that we talked about to trigger your memory in the before. Develop those study habits. If that works for you, write that in the chat. Tutoring, now you know all the wonderful tutoring we have available. And checking in with a counselor for academic of how to reduce your stress. Check the computer, identify possible distractions. During the test, here's what we talked about: practice relaxation, read directions carefully, and budget your time. Then after, review the questions you missed, make any needed adjustments, and seek support. That support could be a counselor, it could be the instructor, tutoring, someone in the class, all the above. So again, in the chat, please put what you're willing to try from what you learned today. Okay. How are we
Already
looking?
got some great responses in there.
Okay.
Before, stay
Yeah.
organized and do studying in portions.
Yes,
During, take a deep breath, and after, celebrate.
definitely. That's going to help. I love those.
Before, identify possible distractions and make plans to eliminate them.
Yes, in a safe manner for everyone.
And another before, translate handwritten notes into a legible, typed, and organized format.
Yes, I love that.
Another before, develop better study habits. And then here's one that I think you'd be able to tell who it's from. Kickboxing. I prefer box kicking. The boxes never strike back.
Romo.
You're right.
Any other befores? Those are great. So again, try them out. If it works for you, great. Keep using it, adjusting how you need to do it. And then if it's not working for you, try another strategy until you get it right. So it's just going to take some time to get into the groove of what works for you and your personality and learning style. Okay, any durings, Dr. Gherkin? What are you going to do during?
I see a lot of before and after. I'm not seeing any during.
Okay. So if you have any durings.
Oh, here's one. Practice relaxation is in there.
Okay. So taking the deep breath, knowing how to do that. Do you breathe in through your mouth or your nose or, you're like, well, how do I breathe? What am I doing? So make sure you know how to do it.
Here's another during, listen to music that blocks our internal and external distractions. A la Stephen King. Heavy metal is great, especially if it's in German.
Yes. And the music is definitely an individual thing. Sometimes people get distracted by the music. Other people, it calms them down. So again, knowing yourself, if it's going to work and if it's allowed. You want to make sure.
Excuse me. Two others said budget time.
Yes. So budget time, you use that a lot in the test taking process. You're going to budget before when you're studying the information, and then you're going to budget your time during. So chunk it out both times, before and then during the test. Good. These are great. And then any afters? What are you going to do after?
I saw one earlier that said celebrate.
Yes, celebrate. And how are you going to celebrate? And keep that in mind as you're taking the test and you feel yourself spiraling out of control. Like, okay, after this is done and I do really well, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to have a cheeseburger, or I'm going to watch a movie, and remind yourself of the reward. And again, that's going to help you too.
Here's another after. List what worked and did not work so I can seek support.
Yes. What didn't work, make adjustments. Keep trying until you have a plan. And if you need individual, if your test anxiety still isn't going down after you try these strategies, please reach out to counseling and we can assist you with that.
I've got a couple that say after review the questions I missed, and one says follow up with the instructor if there's something I don't understand.
Exactly.
And there's another after that says meet with the instructor to go over the test, because sometimes you didn't understand the question or there was an error in the answer key. I've had instructors give us all additional points because they didn't know the question was unclear and how students would interpret it.
Very good. Yes, reaching out to your instructor, that's usually what I recommend be your first person to reach out to, because they're the ones who created the questions and they can help you with the next one. The first test in the semester is typically the hardest because you don't know how the instructor tests, what it's going to be like. So you have that added anxiety. Okay. Those are great. Befores, durings, after. I appreciate you sharing so that we can all benefit from your strategy and others may use it as well. Okay, now, any questions? And if you have any questions, again, please put them in the chat. That will be the easiest way if you just quickly, and Dr. Gerken's gonna let me know if there's any questions that I can answer for you, or you can always make an appointment and we can talk about anything individually or one of my esteemed colleagues. Okay, so no questions?
Not seeing any yet. Let's give them 30 seconds or so.
Okay. Since you have to type them. Well,
So here's one. Sometimes I feel like if I don't get an A, then I didn't deserve the A I got before.
oh, yeah, that's a good point. Now, we talked about the different foundations. So it could be that you understood the information for the first part, and then there's something about the building of the second foundation that, oh, I didn't understand. So it doesn't mean you didn't deserve it. It could mean that it has changed. The information has changed, and you're not understanding that as much. And other things that could be happening, did you study the same way? Again, look at how you're studying. Did you study as much as the first time? Again, that self-talk of you deserve this, you deserve to be successful. All of those things will be beneficial.
This might be a good thing to discuss with the counselor too.
Yeah, because all of that is individual of how people respond to that, and that perfectionism, that creeps up on a lot of people. I have to get an A. I have to, and we can help with those have to, shoulds, woulds, coulds. That's rewriting that script. Those are good questions. Thank you for asking that. And sometimes it's a little intimidating, especially in this setting, to ask questions. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we want to make sure everyone logistically, so I want to thank everyone for coming, and thanks to Dr. Gerken for all the technology support and everything else that helped, and my colleagues who came to support.